Oh, it's gonna fall off. Any moment now. Check.
So, I've received quite a few questions about how I train for the Ultraman triathlon. And for those of you who are new here, an Ultraman triathlon consists of a 10-kilometer swim, 421-kilometer bike, and an 84-kilometer run. Yeah, that's pretty ridiculous. And so is my training plan. First of all, I use Training Peaks to plan and track my training. Now, Training Peaks calculates some key values that help me analyze my training. Each workout is assigned a TSS or a training stress score. TSS is an estimate of the overall training load and stress on your body, which takes into account stuff like the duration and intensity of the workout. And to give you a reference point, a TSS score of 100 would mean an all-out 60-minute effort. And then Training Peaks sums up all those TSS values from all your workouts, and based on those, it calculates your fitness, fatigue, and form. Now this is gonna get a bit technical, but bear with me. Fitness is a rolling 42-day average of your daily TSS. Fatigue is a 7-day average of your TSS that accounts for the workout you have done recently. And then form is the balance of TSS equal to yesterday's fitness minus yesterday's fatigue. And without going into too much detail, the goal is to get your fitness as high as possible while retaining a form of 0.
Okay, I want to be a bit more specific. If your form is over 25, you're losing fitness. A value between 10 and 25 is a good value for race day. It means you're fresh. And then when you're training, you should aim for a form between -10 and -30. And if you go below -30, there is quite a high risk of injury.
This means that you should slowly increase your training load so that your fitness increases, but that you should also take regular recovery weeks so that your fatigue stays low. I think these three metrics clearly reflect the fact that endurance sports is all about slowly and consistently increasing your training load. I mean, if you ramp up your training load too fast, your fatigue will be sky high compared to your fitness. Your form is bad and you can't perform at your best. On the other hand, if you're not consistently increasing your training load, after a certain point you're just maintaining your fitness level. You're not actually developing it or increasing it. Now, if you've understood everything I've said thus far, amazing. If you haven't understood everything, that's alright. Because I mean, I still struggle to understand some of it. And you don't really need to understand all of this to create a good training plan. So let's get into the training plan itself. Let's first look at my training plan a few months back, when I was still training for the Ironman, which is half the distance compared to the Ultraman. At that time, my plan consisted of 2 to 3 runs per week, and then 2 swims and 2 bikes. One run was focused on speed work and sub-threshold training. That means doing some high-intensity intervals with short recoveries in between. These sort of workouts aim to develop my leg speed, my running economy, and they teach my body to cope with the demands of running faster. And the other run was a longer, low-intensity aerobic run. Now, these long runs develop my endurance and my aerobic base. And developing a strong aerobic base is really important, especially if you're doing a long-distance event, like an Ultraman or an Ironman. Because in long-distance events, you will spend over 90% of your time in aerobic intensity, not in the well, it's on the screen. You won't use that system a lot. Similarly, I had 1 speed workout for the bike and 1 longer bike ride for aerobic endurance. And finally, 1 swim was a faster threshold effort swim with shorter intervals, and the other swim was a slower aerobic swim with longer intervals. But one thing to notice is that I didn't really have any technique work for my swimming, and I've never been a swimmer, so I think that was a mistake. I should focus a lot more on my technique, which we'll see. I'm now focusing more on my technique, but let's move on. I know, I almost forgot. I also had 1 to 2 weightlifting sessions each week. But these were not your traditional all-out weightlifting, bodybuilding, sweat and blood sessions. No. They were more like for injury prevention and strength maintenance. So that was the structure of my training plan before the summer started. And then, well, I had to make some changes because, Ironman got cancelled and I decided to do an Ultraman.
Just a quick disclaimer, I'm not an experienced triathlete, nor do I have a coach who would help me create a training plan. My training plan is based on a few books and a few articles I've read online. So please do not just copy this training plan and try it yourself. The point of this video is more about sharing some general ideas about endurance training and what it requires from an athlete to prepare for an event like the Ultraman. Moreover, I hope that this video can spark some ideas that then lead you to do your own research and creating your own training plan. Okay, so now that that's out of the way...
Basically, my current training plan combines 3 different training plans that I found from the internet. A training plan for an ultra-distance swim, a training plan for an ultra-distance bike, and a training plan for an ultra-marathon. However, as you might guess, the training volume or training load for any one of these training plans would just be humongous. So I had to be realistic and drop down the volume quite a bit. Nevertheless, the training load is still huge. Each regular training week in my training plan, the TSS score is around 1,500. That's the kind of a TSS score you might see on a professional triathlete's training plan. So as a rookie triathlete, that's a lot for me. Also, in my training, I'm gonna focus on 3 main things. First and probably foremost, I'm focusing on improving my swimming technique. Swimming is a highly technical sport, and I think my time is now best invested in technique, not fitness. Fixing some of the problems in my swimming technique will most probably increase my swimming speed a lot more than if I'd be doing fitness drills 24/7. Or not 24/7, but several times a week. Also, lately I've been training so hard that my fatigue is already quite alarmingly high. So switching from high-intensity fitness sessions to low-intensity technique sessions can also help me decrease the amount of fatigue I have at the moment. Second, I'm increasing my running volume and dropping my running intensity. Simply put, I'll aim to put in more miles and drop some of the high-intensity speed workouts. And there are really 2 reasons for this. First, I think I'm more prone to injuries while I'm doing speed workouts. And 2, I think the key now is to just adapt my body to be on the move and to run for a really long time. And that means putting in more miles. Third, I'll work on mobility and injury prevention. And I know I've said this countless times and I've always failed, but it's still something I need to focus on really hard. And to do this, I'll aim to do yoga every single weekday, stretching every day, and weightlifting 1 to 2 times per week. Taking all of this into consideration, a regular training week for me looks like this. At least 3 runs with medium length runs and 1 longer run. The medium length runs will only get slightly longer week by week, but I will increase the duration of the long run up to 5 hours. And one of the medium length runs might actually be a speed workout run, depending on how I feel, how I've recovered. But I do think that now it's key for me to increase my volume and not so much the intensity of those run workouts. Then for the bike, I'll have 1 medium length ride and 1 longer ride. And as an optional workout, I'll have 1 sub-threshold efforts bike. Because again, I think that 2 aerobic bike sessions will be enough for me to finish that 256 kilometer bike on the second day of Ultraman. So I don't think I need to do any speed work or strength sessions for the bike. What I need now is stamina and endurance. So I'm keeping the 3rd bike session as totally optional based on how fatigued I am. Because I also think it's really key for me to keep my fatigue down as we approach the Ultraman. Because my fatigue is still gonna be sky high, so better not overtrain myself. And then for the swim, I'll have 2 technique sessions and 1 long open water session. If I feel up to it, I might even have 3 technique sessions per week. And here you can see my emphasis on technique. a key mistake I did before was not focusing on technique at all. So now I'm hoping that 2 to 3 technique sessions will make my swimming a bit smoother and get rid of any major flaws in my technique. And then I'll have that one open water session, a long open water session, just to familiarize my body with longer swims and with the wetsuit itself. And then when you add in a few yoga sessions, some stretching and 1 to 2 weight sessions per week, voila! You have my training plan for the Ultraman. Then, 2 weeks before the event, I will do a short mock-up version of the Ultraman triathlon. In other words, I'll do a half a distance Ultraman in 1 day. Yeah, most probably it's not ideal to do such an intense workout just 2 weeks before the main event, the Ultraman. But I've never really done any long distance events, so I have no idea what to expect. So doing a mock-up version of the real event will let me know about the problems that I might face. And it also lets me work on my nutrition strategy. For instance, I might find out that my wetsuit starts chafing after 5 kilometers of continuous swimming, which I could fix with some lubricant. Or I might find out that my stomach can't handle Gatorade after 30 kilometers of running, so I'll consume something else after 30 kilometers. And so a mock-up triathlon is a way to solve these problems before the real event. Right after the mock-up triathlon, I will begin to taper. And a taper is simply a short period of time, usually 1 to 2 weeks, of reduced training load, which aims to shed any excess fatigue and make me fresh and sharp for the Ultraman event itself. If you recall the metrics I talked about before, a taper will reduce my TSS scores, which will then reduce my fatigue and which will bring my form close to zero before the Ultraman event, so that I'm fresh and ready to perform. Ultimately, this is a huge increase in volume, and most coaches would probably advise against this training plan. As I said previously, I think endurance sports are mostly about slowly but consistently increasing your training load. And what I'm doing here does not really follow that. So I do acknowledge that increasing my training volume this fast can be risky, but thus far my body has really been able to adapt to really high training volumes. And I think that it's already something that I acknowledge the fact that this could lead to overtraining, and that's why I've also started tracking any signs that could indicate that I'm overtrained. In the morning, I record things like my resting heart rate variability, motivation to train, mood, sleep, appetite, and current stressors. All of these are metrics that usually go out of whack if your body is approaching an overtrained state, or if you're already overtrained, and I'll use them to assess myself every morning.
I'll also use Owen Anderson's simple questionnaire that aims to detect overtraining. The questionnaire consists of the following 6 statements, and then I rate each statement on the following scale, and then, according to Anderson, a score below 20 would indicate that I need to train lightly or recover more before I continue training.
There has already been some mornings when some of these metrics have been out of whack, and I've just taken a complete rest day at that point. Of course, if you actually do get into an overtrained state, 1 day of rest is not gonna cut it. And that is pretty much it. I hope that this video answered some of the questions you guys have asked me. And I'll also add some links to the resources and websites I used to compile this training plan so that you can do your own research if you want to. And I highly encourage you to go through them and do your own research before you create your own training plan. And in a best case scenario, either consult with a coach or actually get a coach for yourself. Because they have a ton of expertise on this, and then you will learn a ton from a coach. And as I said, I am no coach, I'm just facilitating information and hoping that you get some ideas for your own training from this, and then do your own research, and you get that already, okay. However, what I have learned, and what I believe to be correct, is that 2 key parts of any good training plan are progressive overload and sufficient recovery. So train consistently, recover consistently, and increase your training load progressively, and you are on your way to the moon. That's about it. I am pretty orange on this side. Whatever. Oh, get yourself together. I almost forgot. I also. And oh, look at this contrast.